Good morning, colleagues. I hope I'm audible enough. Am I?
Yes, you are. Just hold on. Did people just come in, please, Anthony?
All right.
Okay, Mr. Sampson, it's fine. We can start.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues from all over. Indeed, it's an honor for us to be on day 2 after we started yesterday with a real roller coaster of presentations and also very good inputs from around the country. It is my privilege to welcome you to this session. Yesterday's theme was all about the outcomes and impact of ETD professionalization interventions in the public sector, and to look at what do we measure. There we had the opening by the Honorable Deputy Director General, Pindile Mkwanasi, who gave us just a platform on what we can expect and also the role of the PSTF in general. We also had a very powerful presentation by Professor Herbert Masaramule, the Executive Dean at the Faculty of Humanities, my apologies, at Tshwane University of Technology, where he outlined the framework towards the professionalization of the public sector. And then we had some good inputs from around the attendees on that. Then we were unpacking the implications of the framework for ETD interventions in the public sector, and also the presentation by Dr. Josh Vassen, where how we can measure the outcomes and the impact of the ETD interventions in the public sector. Then we were also greeted by Ms. Alana Baker, who gave us a scope on the future of schools of government. She's a policy analyst in the public employment and management. We were taken on a tour by Mr. Stephen Meaty, who's the head of the Western Cape Academy, which is now PTI, Provincial Training Institute, where the Honorable led us into the ETD professionalization framework and the implications for implementation. And then I think Dr. Denise Miller, who is the Chief Director, Curriculum Support and Trainer Professionalization at NSG, explained to us our involvement in the ETD professionalization and the implications then for the implementation thereof. And she also made mention thereof that there will be a lot of capacitation taking place for ETD practitioners. Now, for today, I think we will have some speakers like Dr. Fren Grelen. We'll be talking about exploiting the affordance of online learning to support professionalization in the public system. It is just to get the link of what we have heard in theory and now into practice. How can we get onto the online in trying to professionalize the public sector? Then we will have Mrs. Tokozile Molwaya, sorry, the Chief Director Evaluation at the Department of Planning and Monitoring. So, speaking to us on the application and transfer of skills. She will also touch on a case study, rapid evaluation of implementation of Project Kaido in Limpopo. Then there will be a moderated panel discussion led by Mrs. Doreen Matebula, where some of the people who took part in a process to use the ICT to support professional ETD delivery in the public sector. There will be some discussions that will take place and some questions that the panel will have to address, which was asked to them in the digital art of facilitation. And then we will ask at the end of everything, Dr. Denise Miller to close the session. But I just need to emphasize the issue of Tokozila's role. She will do precisely, not precisely, but also take us to that processes where Dr. Vassen presentation on how to assess training in the public sector. I hope that was fine. The first speaker that we want to call this morning is Dr. Fren Grelen. And as an introduction, she heads up the e-learning chief directorate at the NSG. She obtained a doctorate in technology-based education from the University of Johannesburg. Her aim was to develop an authentic approach to professional development in the use of educational technology to enhance teaching and learning. To keep abreast of developments in a fast-moving field, Fren continues to do research and work with experts in other education, training, and development institutions. I hand to you, Dr. Fren Grelen.
Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, colleagues. I'm going to start my presentation now and stop the camera. Is the presentation visible to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So thank you for taking the time to join us today as we talk about the value that e-learning can add as a delivery mode to support the professionalization of the public sector. So in terms of a roadmap, there are probably as many definitions of e-learning as there are institutions represented in this webinar. So for our discussion today, I will firstly define e-learning as it is used at the National School of Government, and I will also provide an overview of the different types of e-learning solutions that we offer. I will try and highlight key advantages of e-learning as a delivery mode. We've been exposed to this for a long time now, but sometimes we forget what the unique affordances of e-learning are. Then secondly, I will illustrate the role of e-learning in three of the identified pillars in the value chain for the professionalization of the public sector. You've been hearing about this framework a lot now, and we can explore today how e-learning can support this. I will conclude with a case study, the digital art of facilitation. Firstly, showing it as how do we professionalize those who must professionalize the public service. And then secondly, I also selected this as a case study because it shows the benefits of cost-effective and flexible open distance e-learning, as well as the opportunities for real-time collaboration and immediate feedback in virtual training sessions. So first, how do we define e-learning and what are the affordances of e-learning? So at the National School of Government, we use e-learning to refer to the optimal use of educational technologies to support and enhance learning. So we deliberately spell the word with a small letter E and a capital letter L to indicate that technology is a vehicle to provide learning and development interventions. It's not about technology, it's about learning. And our aim is not to use it for the sake of technology or because we are finding ourselves in the fourth industrial revolution, but to make learning better. So the school implements e-learning to increase the flexibility, scalability, and cost effectiveness of learning and development for the public sector. This is a summary of the types of e-learning solutions that we offer. At the NSG, we use educational technologies to support both informal and formal learning. So let me start with informal learning. This is currently supported in online communities of practice. And these are online spaces that are created on demand for officials who are experts in a given domain of interest. Say, for example, facilitators of online learning. And then the online tools in these communities can facilitate, amongst other things, networking, collaborative learning, and resource sharing amongst the participants. These activities are normally moderated by the person who requested the online space for officials to use. Then formal learning solutions are categorized as either asynchronous or synchronous. Asynchronous meaning not in real time, synchronous meaning in real time. In terms of asynchronous, we offer two types of open distance e-learning interventions. Self-paced open distance e-learning, which does not require significant human interaction or support, is obviously the most flexible, cost-effective, and scalable delivery method. Facilitated open distance e-learning is also relatively flexible and cost-effective when, for example, you compare it to face-to-face training, but it's not truly scalable because it still requires the availability of a facilitator to provide feedback and individual support. And then we have virtual learning, which depends on participants being in the same virtual space at the same time, like we are currently. It is not as flexible, cost-effective, and scalable, obviously, as asynchronous teaching and learning, but more so than face-to-face training. And it still achieves the benefits of real-time learning, live collaboration, and immediate feedback. The research indicates that blended learning works very well. Blended learning solutions gained traction after the COVID-19 pandemic, which required social distancing, and it flips the traditional classroom. On the left, there's an illustration of what typically happens in a traditional classroom, and on the right, you see the classroom flipped. So participants work through learning materials at their own pace. They have the opportunity to assess their understanding before they meet in real time. So instead of encountering learning content for the first time, as they would in a traditional classroom, they now work through video clips, text documents, graphics, infographics, to learn the content. And they can, for example, complete an online quiz to make sure that they understand the content or assess their understanding of the content. And only then is class time used for the application of learning and collaborative problem solving with the guidance from a facilitator. So this class time is obviously facilitated on a platform like Zoom or Teams. So you can see how this delivery method offers the best of both worlds. So let's take, for example, a 3-day workshop that would take officials out of the workplace, have them travel to a specific venue to attend the 3-day workshop. They can now, through flexible, cost-effective, and self-paced open distance e-learning, work through the contents at their own place and at the pace and the time that suits them best, and only then do they for one day meet in a virtual environment or even face-to-face to collaboratively apply what they've learned and solve problems. So post the COVID-19 pandemic, really, the question is no longer if institutions should take advantage of the affordances of e-learning, but how the effectiveness and efficiency of e-learning can be continuously improved. However, we do have to remind ourselves from time to time about the unique benefits of e-learning. And this is what I'm going to try and do very succinctly. One of the most obvious benefits of e-learning is a reduction in costs when we compare it to face-to-face training methods or other traditional training methods. For example, short lectures can be recorded and it can be distributed to a large number of learners. So it's not only 20 people at a given time who have access to a facilitator, a master facilitator, and a renowned subject matter expert can be recorded, and these recordings can be shared with any number of learners, anytime and anywhere. Obviously, travel accommodation and catering costs are completely eliminated in open distance e-learning, and there's also no need to produce physical learning materials. And I think something that we sometimes forget is that the costs associated with officials being away from the workplace for long periods of time are also reduced. Then I think one of the affordances of e-learning that we should exploit more is its adaptability. Digital learning can automatically be adjusted to the needs of individual learners. Based on individual performance, e-learners can automatically be provided with just-in-time feedback, additional resources that they may require to address their particular learning needs, and also unique pathways then to achieve the intended outcomes of an intervention. And this would be opposed to a one-size-fits-all learning experience. Let me give you an example. This is a very simple example. We can exploit this characteristic a lot more. Learners have to work through course content and they have to achieve a certain score for a quiz. So they work through the content. If they do get the minimum score, they move on to the next learning unit. But if they don't, they can be referred to additional learning materials to address their needs, and they get an unlimited number of opportunities to redo the quiz and get specific feedback to help them be successful. So this is one of the examples, and it's a very simple example of how we can use technology to support individual learning. And then obviously it's very flexible. Learners can explore, they can discover, read, they can watch and interact at their own place and pace. And this flexibility offered by such a learning environment is conducive to learner motivation and success. And the throughput rate in NSG courses supports this. It's above 75%. And this compares very favorably with the international benchmark of 10 to 15%. E-learning is also standardized. Anybody who's ever attended training knows that facilitators and personalities and the availability and quality of learning materials and venues can differ significantly from one location to the next. But e-learners, on the other hand, are all exposed to the same content delivered on the same platform, which gives us far better control over the learning environment. Something which is of particular importance for the public sector with its large target audience is the scalability of e-learning. So with the necessary infrastructure and the strategy in place, the NSG can support large-scale learning events to meet the demands for learning and development in the public sector. Now, this means two things. Firstly, large-scale learning means faster employee development across the public sector, because all employees can be reached anytime, anywhere, well, given that they have access to an internet-enabled device. And this then helps us to achieve compliance when officials know, for example, the legislation that govern their jobs and how to conduct themselves in an ethical manner. Obviously, again, given that officials who attend training are held accountable and they work in a conducive environment. One of the examples that I can mention here is when the Public Service Code of Conduct changed in 2016, we could update it and we could immediately give all employees access to learn about the new Public Service Code of Conduct, and then they could be expected to comply. They've been exposed to training and they could be held accountable. And there's also automated progress tracking and reporting, which is made really easy in online learning environments. We must just work with the data that is generated by a learning management system, because it provides insight into how and when learners respond to learning materials and activities. So at any given point of time, those who sponsor training or are responsible for reporting on training can see exactly what the digital footprint of each learner is in a course as a result of their online activity. Now, this information enables us, or coordinators, project sponsors, for example, to follow up with at-risk learners in order to improve throughput and then get value for money on training spent. I think another very important issue here is for content developers. Data can be used to refine the learning materials that we put online and the approaches that we use to teach online. For example, quiz analytics can help facilitators pinpoint exactly which content areas need to be revised and or revisited by learners. If everybody does poorly in a quiz on a specific topic, then the facilitator we need to either revise the content or provide additional content, take the learners back there so that they can achieve the learning results. So why should we still care about e-learning? I particularly like this cartoon that I took from the Irish Times. You will remember that e-learning was the only mode of delivery that could be implemented at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, because it required social distancing to curb the spread of the virus. So we don't know what the future holds, but I think another important issue that we should not lose sight of is that Generation Z is entering the workplace now. And therefore, investment in e-learning is as important as ever. So if you do a little bit of research about Generation Z, they are the workers who do not know a world without the internet, and they are very familiar with digital tools. So they are typically self-motivated learners. They understand how important it is to continuously develop their skill sets. And the things that they value are on-the-job training, flexibility, and diversity. So government institutions must therefore be ready to provide access to high-quality e-learning to engage Generation Z in the workplace. So how can e-learning add value to professionalization of the public sector? On the screen here, I have the 5 pillars in the value chain for professionalization. And I will specifically refer to recruitment and selection, induction and onboarding, and also continuing learning and professional development. So let's start with recruitment and selection. In 2019, government issued a directive calling for the completion of an approved course as minimum entry requirement into senior management service. This was done for 2 reasons. Number 1, to strengthen the recruitment process, and number 2, to make sure that officials are ready to hit the ground running, so to speak, when they are appointed. To this purpose, the National School of Government implements new CALA, You may have heard about the program, may know somebody who's completed it, you may have done it yourself. The course is presented fully online, from registration and payment to certification, and it is self-paced. In other words, there's no need for significant human intervention or support in your care, which then makes the solution very flexible and cost-effective and scalable. And since it's been introduced, more than 30,000 aspirant senior managers have already enrolled in the program. Then in terms of induction and onboarding, what is the NSG already offering? A compulsory induction program for level 6 to 12, which is fully online. However, departments can also opt for an in-person training for level 6 to 12. And then compulsory induction for levels 13 and 14, and also the induction, the executive induction program are offered as blended learning solutions. It has a self-paced component, which is complemented mostly by virtual learning. And the flexibility of e-learning works particularly well for this target group. And then something that I'm quite excited about is we are currently exploring departmental onboarding via e-learning. And this is to address challenges raised by various government institutions. Now, anybody who's involved in onboarding would know that it's very important to limit the time between appointment and onboarding, and this can be done easily online because new employees can be reached at any time and anywhere. There's no need to wait for a number of employees to be appointed to host an onboarding day for new employees. And this works particularly well in provinces where officials are geographically dispersed. And then we can make use of polished, pre-recorded presentations to introduce different business divisions in the institution. And the wonderful thing about this is these can really focus on the highlights of the business division, and they have to stick to a certain time limit to introduce their division to new employees. Then I think one of the most important benefits is that this allows new employees to work through information at their own pace. Because in the interest of practicality, institutions typically try to complete the onboarding process in a single day, which means that new starters must then deal with too much information at once, and they can easily get overwhelmed. Whereas if it's done online, there's an online repository of information that new employees can revisit when they need the information. Then in terms of continuing learning and professional development, given the number of officials employed in the public sector, the availability of flexible, cost-effective and scalable professional development solutions are critical. And therefore, e-learning can significantly widen access to opportunities for officials. What does professional development do? It aims to teach new knowledge, skills and values that officials can apply to improve their performance in the workplace, which is critical for service delivery. So please visit the NSG website for a list of free courses. This is the link to all the free courses that are offered by the National School of Government. These courses cover, amongst other topics, constitutional obligations, ethical conduct, anti-corruption, core competencies for SMS, and also writing skills. And if anybody is interested in paid for e-learning courses or any other courses offered by the National School of Government, I have the contact details of the contact center on the screen. So how does it work in practice? As I said, I chose digital art of facilitation as a case study. Because this program is responding to the national framework towards the professionalization of the public service. It is for all ETD practitioners, not only for facilitators. It is credit-bearing and registered with the ETDP CETA, which is partly why it takes approximately 250 hours to complete. And we believe that public servants can greatly benefit if any interventions are delivered by knowledgeable and experienced facilitators. This is an overview of the course, of the program. You can see that it's quite intense and complex. Learners start with Module 1, which is a facilitated or asynchronously facilitated open distance e-learning course. They have to work through the materials over a 2-week period, very flexible, but they have to meet certain deadlines throughout the 2 weeks. Then Module 2 is offered as a self-paced open distance e-learning intervention blended with one facilitated virtual learning session, where learners then get to see what it feels like to be part of a virtual learning session and how it should be facilitated, because this is quite new for most. Then before learners can continue to Module 3, they have to complete championing anti-discrimination in the public sector, ethics in the public service, and know and live our constitution. And they have to provide evidence of successful completion. These are all self-paced open distance e-learning courses, which doesn't require any human intervention. So participants can do this really at a time and a place and a pace that suits them best. Then they do Module 3, which is also a blended learning solution. And Module 4 is completely self-paced. It prepares them for submitting their summative assessment. And you can see that throughout, the recognition of completion is either a statement of results or a certificate of completion for the compulsory courses. And in the end, those who successfully complete their summative assessment gets a certificate of competence. So how does this work in practice? Anybody can express their interest. They will receive some materials, and then they have to finalize the administrative processes around participating. And here, anybody who's interested can either contact Mr. Mswele, who provides administrative support for the digital art of facilitation, or the contact center. And then once all administrative processes have been completed, participants will receive their login details and a program schedule, as shown on the previous page, and they can also attend an orientation session. Thereafter, they're ready to complete their self-paced online learning, and they can ask for assistance anytime they get stuck. Now, they can do this in 2 places, which is wonderful about e-learning. There is a DAOF hub that learners have access to throughout the duration of their participation in the program. And one of the advantages, for example, is if a learner asks a question in the online discussion forum and they receive an answer, many other learners may have had the same issue. They can log in, go to the board, and then also find an answer there. The learners have to attend all virtual learning sessions when they are required to do so. And then they must submit all formative assessment tasks, which prepare them to demonstrate their competence as a facilitator, either in a virtual classroom or in a face-to-face classroom, and also to submit their summative assessment. Now, what does it take to make all of this work? It takes a lot of administrative support from dedicated people in the training professionalization unit and also in the e-learning unit. We need to be able to roll out the program on a stable learning management system so that people have access anytime, anywhere. There is an e-learning help desk. Say, for example, somebody forgets their password or they cannot submit an assignment. They contact the help desk. A ticket is issued, and that ticket remains open until the issue has been resolved. And then obviously there needs to be facilitators, assessors, and moderators to deal with student evidence as it is submitted. What do the participants say about this program? For now, we are piloting it, and we have the feedback from the first cohort of participants. And we asked them about their learning experience covering 10 topics. The first topic deals with their learning needs, whether they actually learned something new in the topics that were covered. We ask about the applicability and the relevance of the materials that we cover. And we want to make sure that people recognize the examples of practical application and use them in the course. So we ask about that. We want to know if learning is organized in a logical manner. Is it easy to work through the course materials? And then something that is obviously contentious in the e-learning environment is, were people able to schedule time during the workday to complete the course? Now, I don't know who's ever done an e-learning course. I'm currently busy with anti-discrimination. I think I have another week to complete that compulsory course. And I simply do not find time during the day to do it. So I'm forced to either do it after hours or when I'm not at work. And then we want to know if the time estimated to complete the course is accurate. And again, if you think about the course overview that I provided, we do estimate the time that learners should be spending on each course in the program. We want to know about the accessibility of the e-learning platform. Is it easy to use? Is it e-learner friendly? And we also ask feedback about technical assistance from the e-learning help desk. I'm going to give you a quick overview of each module and the responses. So module 1 deals with how do we communicate and collaborate and how do we conduct ourselves online? What skills does an effective online facilitator need? How do we foster online collaboration because people typically feel isolated? And how do we give constructive feedback to support learning? So we only flag the issues where less than 80% of learners either strongly agree or agree with the positive statements about the learning experience. And here you can see we had to flag statement number 7, which deals with, I did not have time during the workday to complete the course. This is a typical e-learning issue that is always raised. And I think because this is the first module in the program, people are still finding their feet around the e-learning platform. So the issue about the usability of the platform was also raised in module 1. Module 2 is a very practical module. It deals with webinar platforms like Zoom and Teams. It deals with building educational relations in a virtual classroom where you do not see your audience and you have to work remotely with a class of 20 people. How do you use instructional spaces to explain content, to elicit discussion, to give people an opportunity to practice what they've learned in real life scenarios and to get them to collaboratively solve problems? And how do you use the functionalities of a virtual classroom? Now, remember, not a long time ago, nobody knew how to use Zoom and Teams, and people had to learn very quickly. What we do in this module is we give access to resources curated from the internet. So people actually have to go and watch videos and teach themselves how to use a breakout room, how to use a whiteboard, how to divide people in groups, how to ask questions using Mentimeter, for example. So those are all resources that learners have to explore by themselves and teach themselves how to use these things. And I think this is not a learning method that most people are used to. We are used to maybe sit in a classroom and somebody explains these things to us. So now learners have to take responsibility for their own learning and be self-directed. In this course, again, we had to flag the issue about the time estimated for this course and then also not having time during the workday to complete the course. Here we can see the learning platform is still an issue, less so than with module 1, but still an issue in module 2. In module 3, you can see that everybody now knows how to use the platform, but still they have to do their work in their own time. Module 3 deals with the African context, decolonizing the curriculum, group dynamics, communication, and challenges in facilitating all education, training, and development interventions, regardless of mode of delivery, and then how to manage and implement developmental assessment, and how to mentor learners. The last module has not been completed by everybody, but given the percentages of feedback that we've received so far, you can see that there are no issues raised in module 4 that deals with understanding the delivery context, analyzing training needs, adult learning theory, inclusivity strategies and learner retention, record keeping and administration, evaluation and reporting, really dealing with the whole value chain of implementing education, training and development interventions. I think by this time, people just got tired to indicate that they have to schedule time on their own and not during the day to complete the course. So the issue wasn't raised in module 4 so far. So this is an overview of what learners said about the course that I used as a case study. And again, I want to thank you for taking time out of, I'm sure, which is a very busy schedule for yourself to join the discussion today. My email address is there. If you have any questions about anything that we discussed today, please feel free to send me an email. But also, please share your ideas. We appreciate the input that can help us improve our e-learning offering.
Dr. Fran, thank you very much. Very informative, but also learnful in the process. I don't know if Doc will be available to take a few of the comments that was raised on the question and answer platform. Just a reminder, colleagues, not to use the chat one, but directly to the Q&A. There were some comments there and also some questions that were asked, Doc, in terms of your presentation. But let me raise some of them. There's one that was specifically by Christo beside the note, asking about the generation Z. And what he wants to know is that based on international, or the profile, is it based on internationally, or is it also part of the framework that we are currently busy with in South Africa? Then there was a question by the same author, the digital badges that was released by the QCTO. How will it be used within the professionalization model, the current framework that we are using? And then we had one from Leroy Koopman. When will NSG roll out full online CIP below level 6? A comment was taken off, I think, by Lesiba, but the person wanted to know about the POEs. Was it submitted on time? The summative POEs. And then Karen Swart was asking, and I think this one we will refer to Dr. Miller, will the NSG still assist departments to design and develop onboarding programs? And the last one was a comment by Fikile. It was not really a question, but it's rather a comment based on the Nukela program. And I'm not sure if I can mention it, but he's saying that some of the SMSs, they are paying people to write on their behalf, and then it serves no purpose. If you can maybe respond on that, Doc.
Anthony, I opened the Q&A block here. I'm going to respond to questions that I see in front of me. If I miss anything, please help me. Christo, obviously, when I refer to the Gen Z profile, I refer to an international profile. But from personal experience, I know plenty of people who were born in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, and I know them to be self-directed learners. That they do not know a world without the internet, and they're very au fait with digital tools. And I think we can safely assume that these are not people who would want to sit in a classroom and be taught. I think they would want the flexibility that is offered by e-learning. But I take your point, and I think we should not assume that all Gen Z public officials will display those characteristics. Then in terms of the Nukela course, now I know that it is said that SMS people pay others to do the course on their behalf and then get the certificate. And obviously, if it is done like that, it does not serve any purpose. It's just a tick box exercise. But the way in which Nukela was originally designed was for learners to keep a reflective journal, to identify a socioeconomic problem, challenge in their environment, and build a case study, which then should be presented as part of the interview process. So there is no way that you can pay somebody else to do this course for you. If you are asked about your reflection in the course, if you need to present your case study. So if the course is implemented as it was originally designed, then I think it definitely serves a purpose in the public sector to strengthen recruitment and selection in the public sector, because these case studies are authentic. They even move beyond examples where people write exams, answering the same questions to prepare themselves for entry. These are examples of authentic problem solving that we want in Nukela. Then we are also very excited about departmental onboarding. Karen, we are working on assisting departments, as you know, with their onboarding as a pilot to see how it goes. But I think departments will also be able to appoint service providers who can do it for them. I think once we have an example, and maybe we can spread the word and share the lessons that we've learned through a process where NSG supports a number of departments. I think those lessons can then be used by other departments for the development of departmental onboarding in online environments. How do you deal with challenges of load shedding and network instability on e-learning? Load shedding is a reality in South Africa. It even it does not only implicate e-learning, it also implicates face-to-face training. For example, if there's load shedding, there's no air conditioner. The food cannot be served during lunchtime, for example. So it's not only e-learning, but I get your point. It particularly influences e-learning. But I think because e-learning is so flexible, especially self-paced open distance e-learning that my unit is particularly responsible for, load shedding does not really put barriers put barriers up for open distance e-learning because it's flexible. People just have to plan their participation. But obviously for virtual training, it is a disaster. We all have backups here today to make sure that we will be able to continue in case of load shedding. So yes, it has an implication for everything that we do in life. The question about registration, I think that maybe Dr. Miller will be able to deal with that better than me. And then the last question again, the NSG has no control over how Nukela is implemented during the recruitment and selection process. So if those who go for interviews are not asked about their reflections, or they are not asked to present case studies, we cannot do anything about that. It is a design that is not implemented as it was intended. I don't know whether I covered everything.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. You did. Thank you very much. Without further ado, colleagues, we are going on with our program. And here we are going to call upon Thokozile Molaiwa from the DPME. She's going to talk to us on the issue of application and transfer of skills. I think we can recall yesterday Dr. Joss's presentation. There will definitely be a link between the two on how to evaluate and implement certain programs, like she's now just flagging Project Kaido in the Limpopo province. Now, she is a seasoned M&E specialist and has served as an evaluator in institutions such as the Public Service Commission, Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, and currently heading the evaluation unit at the DPME. She has over 13 years experience in the evaluation of government service delivery programs. She holds a number of degrees and a postgrad diploma in fields of agricultural economics, land and agrarian studies, and M&E. She has also attended the International Program for Development Evaluation Training in 2010. She has been part of South Africa's National Evaluation System since August 2012 and managed 2 of 8 evaluations included in the first South African National Evaluation Plan, amongst others. She has served on the National Evaluation Technical Working Group, advising on the implementation of the NES. She further served on the steering committee for the evaluation of the NES, which resulted in the review of the National Evaluation Policy Framework in 2019. Thokozile, thank you very much. You may go forward. Just unmute, ma'am.
Okay, apologies. I was busy talking. Thank you, Chairperson, for the introduction, and good morning to participants. Let me try to upload the presentation that I'll be talking to. You can confirm if you can see it.
It's clear, ma'am. Just on, yeah, there we go.
Okay, thanks. I'll also switch on my video so that I proceed with the presentation. I was not part of the session yesterday, but my brief was to take participants through the rapid evaluation or rapid implementation evaluation of the Kaedu SMS deployment program that we undertook in collaboration with the Office of the Premier in Limpopo. So I think, colleagues, maybe it's also critical to indicate that all the work that we do is guided by the National Evaluation Policy Framework, as indicated, revised in 2019, and also maybe to define what is evaluation, which the NEPF defines evaluation as a systematic collection and also objective analysis of evidence on public policies, programs, projects, functions to assess issues such as relevance, performance in terms of effectiveness and efficiency, value for money, impact, sustainability, and also recommend ways forward in terms of recommendations. So colleagues, something is distracting me. In terms of the outline, I'll give a brief background and also the evaluation process, and then key evaluation questions, I will highlight those, and also the methodology that we followed to do the evaluation of CAEDU, and then also give you the findings and recommendations in summary and share with you where the evaluation is. In 2020, as the DPME and also the Office of the Premier, we were trained on rapid evaluation, and for the training, it was also required that we need to identify an evaluation that will then undertake after the rapid evaluation. So DPME and OTP partnered, and the purpose of the evaluation was to assess whether the CAEDU SMS deployment program is being implemented as intended or designed, and also to check whether the objective of improving delivery of services is being achieved. If not, what is stopping the achievement of improving service delivery, and also to test whether the program is still relevant. If relevant, then what can be done to strengthen the program. So colleagues, just to indicate, the evaluation was done internally by DPME officials as well as Office of the Premier, and also in the process trying to also build capacity of the staff to do evaluations themselves without appointing service providers. So if you recall, it was around the COVID time, so we were only able to produce a report around March 2022. And after that, then we briefed stakeholders such as the steering committee, the people that have responded to the evaluation, or the respondents were also provided an opportunity to see what is coming out of the report, and also shared with the provincial structures at the OTP. And currently, we have also received a management response from the Office of the Premier, because after completing an evaluation, we expect the recommendations of an evaluation to be utilized. And there was also an improvement plan workshop held by the province in March 2023. And also there are processes to communicate the findings. For example, now we are presenting here in this conference. It's also a way of sharing. And then later, the improvement plan will be implemented and also monitored by DPME. In terms of evaluation questions, colleagues, we adopted the OECD evaluation criteria, for example, effectiveness, where we were checking whether CAEDU is achieving the purpose and also objectives. In terms of efficiency, we also looked at how well resources were being applied towards the achievement of the purpose of the program. And in terms of impact, looking at emerging service delivery improvements and also outcomes, and whether the program is still relevant to the needs of all the identified stakeholders. So our key questions, we had 6 key questions. The first one was, is CAEDU SMS deployment program being implemented according to design? And that was linked to the effectiveness and efficiency criteria. And another question was, how is the program contributing to service delivery at monitored or assessed service delivery sites? And what were the overall benefits of the program, those that were intended as well as unintended? And also, we also wanted to know what are the challenges facing the implementation of CAEDU in the province, and whether the program is still relevant and what can be done to strengthen the program in Limpopo. Colleagues, also to note here is, as a team, we then decided to focus on the health sector in the province. In terms of the methodology, we try to do literature review and also document review to understand the program design and also the context in which the program is implemented. I've already spoken about we applied the 4 of the 6 evaluation criteria. We also try to do some benchmarking analysis where we reviewed similar programs to draw best practices. For example, we looked at managing by walking around a program and also leading through the front line, which is another program that the province had proposed we looked at. We also developed a draft theory of change, which we did with the Limpopo team, looking at the documents that were shared with us and also engaging with the implementers. Then we undertook the evaluation and at a later stage, also then revised the theory of change based on the evaluation findings, and also used a mixed method data collection, where we had key informant interviews with senior management members that were deployed or trained through the CAEDU program, as well as focus group discussions, and then also interviewed program managers. In this case, it was OTP staff, DPSA at the provincial. I'm not sure if they have a department, but DPSA was also interviewed, and NSG, and then CAEDU champions that are located in the various departments, as well as deployed as SMS members, as I have indicated. And we also held a focus group discussions with management of the Department of Health and also management of facilities that had CAEDU SMS members deployed. So colleagues, the findings are also aligned to the key questions that I've already spoken about. The first question was whether the program is being implemented according to design. So to answer this key evaluation question, we looked at knowledge and understanding of the CAEDU program by the participants and all the role players, as well as whether CAEDU is implemented as intended in the province, and also looked at the training, implementation, and also deployment, as we are aware that CAEDU has got these 2 elements of training and deployment. So according to knowledge and understanding, the results have indicated that the different stakeholders seemed to understand what CAEDU is, and also they emphasize the different components of the program. And there was also a general understanding that the program is designed for SMS members, even though some of the members also indicated that it was targeting MMS members. And also that all respondents demonstrated a good understanding of the program design. And as you can see on the figure there, around 74% of the participants or respondents agreed that the program works as per design, with only 26% disagreeing. So those that disagreed that the program was working as per design highlighted challenges which are linked to the implementation of recommendations that are emanating from the reports that the deployees compile, because there are lack of resources, and also monitoring or follow-up visits were not undertaken after visiting a particular site, and also the fact that deployment reports were not disseminated, and that follow-ups were also not done. And in terms of whether the program is implemented as intended, again, 68% of the respondents agreed that the program was implemented as per design, and only 16% were neutral. And then they also indicated that there is lack of implementation and also no follow-ups on the action plan challenges and also the remediations that have been identified. And for coordinators, also responded by indicating 90% of them agreed that the Kayetu SMS deployment program was implemented as intended, while only 10% were neutral on the view of the implementation of the program. In terms of training, as I've indicated, the program has got two components. From the sample or the respondents, only 84% indicated that they were trained on the Kayetu deployment program, and we had 16% who indicated that they were not trained. And this finding is not in line with the program design, which indicates that all SMS members that are part of this program should be trained before they are deployed to the different sites. And we also asked a question on whether SMS members were trained before or after deployment. Again, 68% were indicated they were trained before deployment, and 16% were only trained after deployment, while another 16% indicated they were not trained. This then translates to 32% of SMS members who were not trained or trained after deployment, which is also, again, not in line with the program design, which indicates that members should be trained before they are deployed to the different sites. And colleagues, this slide indicates the duration of training of SMS members as per the perspective of the SMS members and also the champions. So you'll see in this figure, there were people who indicated that training was 1 day. For example, SMS said 10% of SMS said people were trained for a day. And for example, 5 days, 58% indicated that people were trained for 5 days. But according to the design of the program, the people are supposed to be trained for 5 days, and the 5-day training includes training on core skills, on practical, and also includes practical exercises and also case studies. And these skills are expected then to be applied during deployment, and also the trained officials are also expected to produce a report and also make presentations on their findings and recommendations on the sites that they would have visited. So colleagues, again here, the findings then suggest that the province did not fully comply to the 5-day training of SMS members before deployment. According to the coordinators' perspective, we asked the question of whether all the deployed SMS members from their departments received training before deployment. As you can see on the graph, 90% indicated no, SMS members were not trained before deployment. Only 10% indicated that SMS members were trained. Reasons for not training included that training is not prioritized within their departments, and also issues of budget constraints, as well as indicating that some of the people that are not trained is because they are new appointees. And it was also found that it seems the departments were then undertaking briefing of the SMS managers prior to their participation or prior to deployment, and to clarify also the expectations and their role in the project. But this was also found to be a huge cause for concern, because a number of SMS members are not subjected to the 5-day training, as we have indicated, and then this makes them not to add the value that they are expected to add when they visit the different sites. Colleagues, this slide is talking to the deployment of SMS members, because according to the CAEDU deployment program, SMS members should be deployed for 5 days. And according to the figure here, it shows that 90% of SMS members were deployed between 3 and 5 days, which translates to 3 days being the highest number of or percentage where SMS members are deployed. So this is to some extent compliance or aligned to the requirement of the 5-day, but the finding was that also there is room for improvement to ensure that we may be aligned to the 5 days as required by the program. And deploying members or training members before deployment also has, not training members before deployment has a potential to negatively impact on the efficiency and also the effectiveness of the program in the province. In terms of whether CAEDU is contributing to service delivery improvement at monitored or assessed service delivery facilities sites, colleagues, you will see here that we have responses from the facility management or management of the health facilities, because we focused on the health sector, and also the champions located at different departments in the province and senior management members. So you can see from the graph that 80% of the champions, as well as 79% of the SMS members, and only 56% of facility management were of the view that the program is contributing to service delivery improvement at monitored sites. And also, despite some concerns that were raised by those who did not agree that the program is contributing to service delivery, it can then be concluded that the program did contribute to service delivery improvement at monitored site. And whether there were improvements over time on the sites that were monitored by the deployed SMS members, we found that there were contradicting views between the SMS members. As you can see, 63% said yes, and also 40% of champions said no in terms of yes. So they said yes to the fact that there was improvement in the facilities over time. So we also noted here that this contradiction might also be as a result of the fact that the champions do not visit the actual sites, but they only coordinate SMS members to be deployed at a department level, while the SMS members are deployed to the actual sites. So, and they also do follow-ups in some extent. So therefore, they were able to maybe detect the changes over time. Colleagues, we also found that CAEDU was also found to be contributing to the following at the monitored health facilities: planning and service delivery improvement, and also financial and resource management. And there was also human resource management and supply chain processes that were improved due to the program, but there's also room for improvement on supply chain processes. The program also contributed to information management and quality improvement, risk management and quality marketing. However, also marketing was found not to be relevant for health facilities, and also the values and also attitudes of the staff were also found to have improved towards the patients of these health facilities. There was also improvements in waiting time in the health facilities, and also improvement in patient safety and security, as well as improved access to basic medicines and supply. So here we just know that the contribution to service delivery could be greater if the program was implemented as designed, and also there was consistent monitoring of visited sites, and resources were also allocated to implement the recommendations emanating from the site visits. We also wanted to look at what are the overall benefits of the Kayedu program. Overall, the program was found to train and also expose senior management to real issues on the ground, or service delivery issues on the ground. And they were also provided an opportunity to share best practices. It was also found that the program equips SMS members with monitoring and also problem-solving skills, and further asserting that where recommendations are implemented, service delivery improves, and also there's subsequent benefits of or to the citizens of, or the users of the service. In terms of short-term benefits, colleagues, I'm not going to go through all, but there was a possibility to then identify and also address gaps, some of which did not need budget allocations. For example, is the displaying of communication posters and also queue management to reduce the waiting time by the patients, and also improvements in health and hygiene safety at the site. And long-term benefits includes the development of long-term plans to address citizens' complaints and also improve service delivery in hospitals, and also inculcation of management skills that assisted management to address organizational challenges and improve turnaround times. Positive unintended benefits. The program further enabled the identification of poor performers, and this also enabled government to then prioritize these poor performers and focus areas for deployments to improve poor service delivery in those identified areas. There was also increased expectations of improvements in management and also the performance of facilities and the work environment. And also the deployment was deemed by some members to have increased accountability, time consciousness, and also leading by example. In terms of negative unintended benefits, is that as highlighted by the respondents, there was a creation of unrealistic expectations, because facilities were then expected to make immediate intervention, and these also then resulted in management feeling like they were incapable of managing some of the recurring issues raised and were not resolved, for example, due to budgetary constraints. In terms of relevance, colleagues, you'll see that 90% of SMS members, these 90% have added strongly agree and also agree. And I think that was the way we did it, even in other figures that I've already projected. SMS members agreed that the program is still relevant in the province. And the reasons was that the province include the intentions and also objectives of the program are very good, but the biggest challenge there is the non-implementation of the recommendations, lack of follow-ups in terms of monitoring implementation, as well as management of the facilities failing to take responsibility for what should happen after the monitoring by the deployed officials. And CAED was also seen to be able to ascertain the level of client satisfaction, which leads to quality and also improved service delivery. And also that the program provided a platform for sharing best practices and enabled service delivery gaps to be identified, and encouraged effective participation of all role players to identify solutions and interventions. We also wanted to know, as I indicated, what are the challenges in implementing the CAED program in the province. So here I'll just take you through some of the challenges: lack of human and financial resources to implement recommendations, and also long-term capital project plans. This was also attributed by the respondents to the fact that the program is implemented in the middle of a financial year when departments had already committed their budget to other priorities. And also the program was also being implemented for compliance and deemed by a few of the respondents as a waste of time and also misuse of state resources, because there was no strategy in place to ensure that the program is implemented successfully. And we also found the program was implemented during the June Public Service Week and also in the September Public Service month, not consistently throughout the year. And that the Office of the Premier as a coordinating institution does not have established mechanisms to enforce implementation of recommendations by relevant department. Next challenge is also lack of collaborative efforts, here referring to the fact that there were still silos in implementing service delivery improvement programs across government, and also the lack of guidelines, policies, and legislations to guide the implementation of CAED. And it was also highlighted that at provincial level, there's also lack of political and executive buy-in and inadequate sharing or communicating of report findings to government or within government decision-making structures. And another challenge was that there was exclusion of components such as human resource development, finance, and infrastructure and supply chain management in the CAED assessment tool. And the other concern raised was that senior managers are rotated to different sites within the same financial year, instead of having the same managers visiting one particular site, so that there's continuity and also consistent on-site monitoring. Moving on, it was also highlighted that some SMS members are refusing to be deployed due to other work commitments, where then led to departments deploying the same members who are willing to participate in this program. And another challenge was that the absence of CAED program in performance agreements of SMS members may also contribute to the lack of commitment during deployments. And also another challenge was poor communication of deployment reports, and also that recommendations were not forwarded to the head office of the department at provincial level. And in cases where reports are forwarded, sometimes follow-ups were not done to track the progress with the implementation of the action plans. In terms of recommendations, colleagues, in total, we had around 26 recommendations, and they were categorized into the following improvement objectives: to improve the program's contribution to service delivery at monitored or assessed service delivery points, and also to improve the program's implementation according to the design to improve challenges facing the implementation of CAEDU at provincial level, and also to improve the relevance and strengthen the program in the province. Colleagues, I'll just browse or go through quickly. I'm not going to go through all the recommendations in detail, but just to highlight a few. On the first improvement objective, it was indicated, for example, that the recommendation is that OTP should ensure that it involves executives or senior management of other key stakeholders such as NSG, DPSA, and sector departments in the planning phase of the deployment component of the program, and also to have the same teams deployed to the same sites, and to also improve to ensure that the program is not only implemented for compliance purposes, but implemented throughout the year. In terms of improving the design, the province was then requested to ensure that SMS members are trained before they are deployed to ensure value add, and also that accounting officers of departments should also be held accountable for non-implementation of recommendations, and also improving sharing and communication of findings and through the reports that the deployees compile. In terms of improving implementation, there was a recommendation, for example, to ensure central coordination and accountability by the Office of the Premier, and also a need to then produce quarterly reports on progress made around the program. And in terms of relevance, to integrate the program with other monitoring programs or activities that the province is undertaking. And also to strengthen the program, there was also a need to review the monitoring instruments or tools towards ensuring its relevance to current or prevailing service delivery challenges. Maybe last slide, colleagues, is just to share where the evaluation is currently. As I indicated, it was approved by the steering committee around May, June last year. We have already received SDPME a management response from the Office of the Premier, and as indicated, an improvement plan has already been developed, and it will go through approval processes, after which SDPME will then follow up on the implementation of the improvement plan for a period of 2 years on a 6-monthly basis to check how far is the province in terms of implementation of recommendations. Thank you, Chairperson. I think this was my last slide.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very insightful presentation which you've just made to us. And I think some of our provinces, we can take a feather from your head in terms of the relevancy of this case study that you've done. We are also aware, ma'am, that you have got another commitment at 10:30. And if possible, will you be able to take any comments or any questions that was posed on the Q&A, which I just want to highlight maybe 1 or 2 of them, which is relevant to you. Somebody was just testing your M&E skill. Yeah, I think it's Lesiba. Just to check on what the duration of impact assessments after training would be. Is it 3 months or is it longer than 3 months? And then also there was a question from Sydney that asked us, is it possible to integrate some of these programs to reduce the number of programs, specifically referring to SMSs and MMSs? And I think that will be an internal question to be answered. The one from Kulani was very interesting when asking what was the criteria to deploy the SMSs to the sites. Because some of the SMSs, they were deployed before capacitation, which can then at the end of the day compromise the project. And then there was this comment from Nomfundo, which says the challenges that you have raised now is contradicting the beautiful picture you gave us earlier on the positive findings. So these are just some of them. Will you be able to take them, or should we just address it on the Q&A?
Where is am I still audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, colleagues, I agree to the proposal to integrate. I think that's also one of the challenges that was highlighted, that there's a non-integration in terms of implementation of similar programs that are tracking or maybe aimed at improving service delivery at provincial level. Colleagues, in terms of criteria, I'm not in a position to say what criteria was used by the departments, but I think based on the challenge that was raised by the respondents, that it seemed the program was only implemented during the public service week and public service month. So it's possible that then the departments would have been in a way rushed or did not have enough time to properly plan the implementation of this program. Hence, we find that people that were also not trained were sent or deployed to the sites and only given a brief, maybe a day before they were deployed. And I think one of the concerns there was also that some people are also refusing to be deployed. And it's possible that maybe those people might have also been trained, but were not interested in participating in deployment due to other work commitments. Yeah, I note the comment that there might be contradiction between the beautiful picture that I painted in the beginning. But I think, colleagues, as I indicated, one of the key questions for this evaluation was also to highlight what the challenges are. So we received these challenges from the respondents, and we did an analysis and came up with some of the challenges that I have highlighted as the key ones that the participant had identified. So, colleagues, I think maybe just also to mention that evaluations are done for learning, to improve performance and also accountability. When we do an evaluation, we often then find maybe some good practices and also things or areas that they can be improved to improve the objective or the program achieving its objectives and increasing maybe its impacts. In terms of how was impact on service delivery measured, we always get this debate as to what do we mean by impact. We didn't do like a proper impact evaluation, which includes maybe conducting baseline information or collecting baseline information before an intervention was implemented. So in this case, we were just, I think the impact was based on the perspectives of the participants or the facility management of the different health facilities that were interviewed to say, we noted the following impacts or improvements since we had some deployed officials from the Kaedu program. Thanks, Chairperson. That's how far I can go. I'm not sure if I covered all the questions.
No, you did, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think you took us back to yesterday's presentation by Dr. Joss, where he analyzed for us the Kirkpatrick model of where we can look into the reaction, the learning part, the behavior, and the results of this project that you guys have done. And as I was saying, where we can take something home, not necessarily looking at percentages, but your 90% of satisfaction of the attendees shows at least some hope for us as other provinces to tap in there. The concern might be the post-Kaedu. This is where the challenge lies. What happens after Kaedu, after the recommendations? And that is, for us as administrators, always a challenge after implementation of a program, a specific program. What happens after the program implementation? And that is what you raised there, that some of the implementers after recommendation, it doesn't have that will to make the change or to come up with strategies how to overcome the situation which they are in at that moment. But ma'am, thank you very much for the presentation, and I hope you will make your next appointment.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Colleagues, we are coming to a very interesting part of our program, which is more of a practical engagement by a group of cadres who had a program which the digital art of facilitation. And is there something Dr. Fran wants to say?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, I see your name. Yeah, okay. I want to introduce to you, colleagues, this group of officials who engage into this program, and it will be in a form of an engagement of this group that we will see them as a moderated panel discussion. The use of ICT to support professional ETD delivery in the public sector system through digital art of facilitation. The first person that I want to introduce to you will be the leader of the pack, Doreen Matebula. She's a Deputy Director, Training Professionalization in Curriculum Support and Trainer Professionalization in the NSG. She started her career as a high school teacher for 6 years, then became a lecturer in Faculty of Education for 15 years at both Vista University and the University of Pretoria, specializing in professionalization of student teachers. And she holds a master's degree in education. Then the panelists that will support and give us some broader perspective on digital art of facilitation. There's Mr. Opa Johannes Molopo. He's a teacher in Mpumalanga province, and he's a participant of this digital art of facilitation program. Then we will have Lisa De Toy. She is the Director, International Cooperation and Resources. She is the digital art of facilitation program participant for today also. Then we will have Mr. Pazuna Stofile. He's a senior manager responsible for frontline service delivery, monitoring, and human rights mainstreaming support to the Western Cape Government Department. He's also a participant in the program. Then there was Dr. Maggie Ravengani. She's a director, human resource stakeholder relations and management in the National Department of Health, Human Resources for Health Planning, Management and Development. Also a participant in the panel. And then Mr. Ibrahim Ismail Kurt is a director, IT in Limpopo in the Department of Economic Development, Environment and Tourism, the DIET. He's got plus minus 30 years experience in the IT field, public and private sector. He's got a master's degree from the University of the Wits University in the field of ICT policy and regulation, and Mr. Kurt is also a participant. The process will unfold as follows, colleagues. I will hand over to Doreen, who will run the panelist discussion and do a summary thereof, and then we will ask then later Dr. Miller to give us a vote of thanks. Over to you, Doreen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Oh, sorry. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you for attending our presentations for today. Without further ado, I'm going to call 3 of our participants, digital art of facilitation participants. In other words, they are registered for the digital art of facilitation, which Dr. Fren has elaborated on in her presentation. So I'm going to give them questions and they will respond accordingly. The first question is, discuss your personal insights into the digital art of facilitation program. You can focus on your personal learning experiences and I went to the second slide. You can focus on your learning experiences and also state whether you'll be able to do it in your time as well as the content. I'm going to call the first respondent, which will be Miss Lisa Dutoit. Miss Dutoit, sorry.
Good
The stage
morning.
is yours. Let me
Thank
stop
you very
sharing.
much. Thank you very much, Doreen. Thank you, colleagues, for having us. I think my personal experience of the program is it's very, very well structured. The modules has got a gradual progression. They build on top of each other, and there's a cross-cutting prominent focus of decolonization and inclusivity, which for me is very new in especially government sector training. The flexibility of the modality, we've heard a lot this morning, really allows you to pay attention to your personal development and not having to spend just all your time on your work responsibilities. So you do get time to work on yourself and continue your own development. Regardless of the amount of work that we have done online, we've worked online extensively for a long time. The program offers you so much more. There's so much more learning that I was actually in awe of what I did not know about online facilitation after so many years doing everything online, facilitating training, facilitating meetings, etc. And then lastly from my side, maybe on this question is that not all of us in the program has got a training or educational background. And the program provides for us to become those facilitators in which we can then share that those expertise that we do have and that we've built up over years in the public service, and to give something back. I think what is important for me is, yes, ICT is here to stay, and it's not going to go anywhere. But the public service environment is also a very special one. And you will always have that that interface with politics, with society, with private sector, and it is that experience that I think that people with experience in the public service can bring to other learners in the public service. Thank you very much. That's it for me now.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's hand over to Doreen.
Dr. Rabengani?
Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to share the experiences and also the insight into the 2022-23 Digital Art of Facilitation Program. For me, I think from the beginning or the launch of the program on the 9th of December, it was an interesting roller coaster where actually I had to actually put on my boots and also my gloves and be prepared to learn. And I think as indicated by Lisa also earlier on, this was a well-structured program where we were trained actually to understand the issues of compliance with the provisions and the legislations and the procedures that we are supposed to follow in order to ensure that public service actually, service delivery is actually effective. We were also able to learn also to exercise proper discretion and also innovation in solving routine and complex, or what we call wicked problems in public service. We also learned a lot about how to develop powerful questioning and active listening skills. I think one of the most interesting things for me also was actually some of the comments that we learned about death by PowerPoint, where actually we learned that it's not about a wordy presentation, which actually give the information or reflect or actually assist in the learning environment. But as a facilitator, you need actually to have fewer words, fewer points, and also have some videos and also have some pictures, and also to use them also to illustrate, particularly for other learners who might also have some learning disabilities. So one of the things that I've also learned here was that to work with other people, particularly working online, to work in a collaborative manner, to participate in a virtual classroom. And also we learned also how to enhance our pedagogical skills, particularly content knowledge, as indicated by Lisa, the issues of exclusivity, but also to learn how we can actually, facilitate learning in a decolonized manner in order to redress the legacies of the past. One of the other things which were important also was also, as indicated, was the issues of diversity strategies that actually we can apply in service delivery. And also when you are also training other people who are supposed to be facilitating the effectiveness of service delivery, ensuring that you understand that there are differences in the way people actually learn, cultures and other things, and also respect that and accommodate it. And I think one of the interesting one was the other courses that we needed to do, which were compulsory, which assisted us to learn about the values of the Constitution. I mean, for me, it was interesting to go through the Constitution, all the chapters from chapter 1 to 14, and also all the quizzes that we had to go through, and one learned a lot. We learned a lot about democracy, human rights, social justice, decolonization, as I've already indicated, but also the issues of indigenization of curriculum. And also, I think these were some of the issues that actually were an eye-opener for me. And finally, we were able to be what, and then also know and also apply what we have learned. I think for me, that's the part that I would like to share as far as the insights into the program. Over.
Thank you so much. Can we have our last presenter for this, who will respond to the question, Mr. Ward?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to provide my impressions on the DAOF program. So I think my colleagues have pretty much summed up everything. But in brief, yes, I concur that the program content is easy to understand, firstly. It's comprehensive to the degree that I didn't expect. And then, of course, it's inclusive and reflective as well, which is very insightful and promising in the sense that it forces you to reflect on what you've learned. It is also supported by quality resources in the form of multimedia animations, text, as well as video. And the platform is generally simple enough to navigate. So from that point of view, I think the program meets, learner expectations, and also meets its objectives as were outlined at the initiation of the program. There are a couple of areas that I like to raise regarding the delivery specifically. I felt that the live sessions were too short and too infrequent. As I've indicated earlier, I found the program very comprehensive, very detailed, and I think that perhaps there's room to have a mid-session kind of live session and an interactive session. Because what can happen is that if you lose your way, sometimes it's helpful if you're in a collaborative session where you can kind of express your own discomforts and so on. So I just felt that live sessions, while they were for 2 hours, what I mean by short is that perhaps they could program. So in that regard, the opportunities for group collaboration is rather limited. I think we were introduced to the lounge during the first module, and it required us to interact on that lounge, but thereafter it kind of fell away a bit. So I think some kind of intervention is required to kind of sustain the momentum in terms of group collaboration. And in that regard, there are a number of collaborative tools available. For example, interactive whiteboards. There are some examples like Miro, and I think that particularly for Module 3 and Module 4, it would be useful if groups are required to complete, for example, a group exercise or some group activity. So yeah, those are really my inputs in summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. I want to assure you that we appreciate your feedback, and we are currently, as we go on, we're looking at such gaps, and then we'll be managing them properly. The next three presenters for question 2, let's put our second question on the screen. Sorry, our second question is, how do you see yourself using ICT in delivering training or developmental interventions? How do you see yourself using ICT in developing training or interventions, developmental interventions? I will now go to stop sharing, and then I will invite, Yeah, I will invite the three following people. The first one will be Opa or Mr. Molopo. The second one will be Mr. Stofile. And the third person to respond will be Dr. Ravengani. Mr. Molopo, the stage is yours. Will I also request that all the participants who will be responding to this question open their cameras so that we can see them. Mr. Molopo, Opa Johannes Molopo, are you there? Okay, let's move on to the next respondent, who will be, panelist, who is Mr. Stofile. Mr. Stofile? Jonathan, are they all muted? Can you assist in unmuting them? Mr. Stofile, I see he's online there. Jonathan, can you assist in unmuting Mr. Stofile? Okay, let me now go to the next participant, Dr. Ravengani, whilst we are still waiting for the other two to get ready. Dr. Ravengani, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Member Tebula. Are you able to hear me and the rest
Yes,
of
ma'am.
the Thank you. I think, sorry, should I continue or should we?
Continue, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So in this part of the question, we're supposed to actually give a reflection on the use of ICT in delivering education and training interventions. So my input here is that I think the ICT training approach had a great impact on my learning experience because of the following, that I was able to monitor and manage my own learning. I was actually also able to use innovative learning resources and methods. I was able to have time to think critically and creatively while solving simulated real-world problems as they were posed. in some through the quizzes and others through some of the discussions. I also found that the facilitators were digitally supportive when required or when necessary. And then as a result, actually, they were able to actually assist in ensuring that the ICT system is actually well integrated into the NSG curriculum. By also saying that was that, it was easy to go through the questions and also the quizzes. And then by reading through, one was able to actually follow through and be able to respond accordingly. For me, I think it is actually also important. And also I found it interesting that, this actually reinforced the idea of self-directed learning, particularly when you are having distance learning, and also to work collaboratively with other participants, as indicated by one of the participants in the initial or the first question, although this actually happened mainly during the first module, but I think it also opened one's eye, and also it was good to actually learn online and to hear other people critiquing you when you haven't seen them. We did have a challenge of load shedding every now and then, but I think some of the lessons that we had actually directly or indirectly assisted us in getting ready and getting prepared, so that if there's load shedding, one would have the laptop charged, then you would use maybe other materials and other tools to ensure that you still get connected if actually the Wi-Fi is not necessarily working in the house. So there was a lot that one has learned through this process, and I think I believe that ICT is the way to go, and I think as a country we will be able to actually quickly and easily professionalize our public service, because then we don't have to have the issue of people traveling long distances, and people can actually learn from the comfort of their own homes. Although I think there are some challenges as indicated by others, that how do you ensure that the person who is really working on the system is that a person? And I think there are tools actually which have been adopted by other companies and other organizations, wherein maybe some of the summative tests or evaluations can be done in such a way that actually they are being invigilated also virtually. So there are many ways that I think we can only continue to win when we are using the ICT. So for me, I really had a very good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Avengani. In the meantime, while we are struggling to get hold of Mr. Molopo and Mr. Stofile, I'll ask Lisa, Ms. Dutoit, to respond to the second question.
Thank you very much, Doreen. I think from my side, just adding to what Maggie said, she had a very comprehensive feedback. It's just if this question of getting people to do these training programs on your behalf and pay them, to do this one is going to be exceptionally expensive. This is not something that is just easy. It's really extensive. It's really you really learn a lot. Challenges we've had, but we've learned to live around load shedding and devices going off because of towers getting the batteries not being charged. And similarly, you find yourself a way to work around that as well. Then maybe just yes, it's cost effective, obviously, especially for my department, which I think is very grateful, especially for myself, because I can use my time the way that I really see fit. And I think from my perspective in being in the international program, this really provides an opportunity to reach public officials, not in every corner in the country, but those public officials that are posted internationally do not have a reason to say anymore, but we do not have access to the programs. And I really think that can help a lot in terms of living out our constitution, making sure that people carry that message across the world. So from my side, I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Mr. Stofile.
Good day, and thank you, facilitator. Apologies for the struggle earlier on. I'm not sure if you can see me. If I look at myself on the screen, it looks a bit distorted. I'm not therefore sure that I'm visible. I'm also trying to share my presentation and focusing on the second question, unless you want me to cover the first question as well. So on the second question that we were asked then about the observation, I think for myself, the application of the digital art of facilitation is a journey. And it will probably remain so for a while, because as Mr. Koort said, that the course itself is comprehensive, and Lisa referred to some of the new elements of the that are presented in the program, which are very welcomed. I think if one look at concepts like decolonization, inclusion, indigenization, which for the public sector would seem to be in the context with which it was spoken of or it's presented, it would seem as if it's a different and a fresh approach to considering when one is preparing material for facilitation and also preparing the content of one is presenting. Because if one brings into account the compulsory courses that we were put through, i.e. the constitution, the ethics, and then the discrimination elements of it, one can see very clearly that those address the current challenges that we have around people's rights not being taken into account in service delivery. And if our training, especially training public servants to be professional, to be considerate, and to be inclusive in the delivery, in the plan, that will bode well, I think, for how we ensure that no one is left behind when we deliver material like this, not only during training and development, but also during the actual service delivery. The ethics part of it, I reflected and thought of the other pandemic that we have in the public service, where a lot of public servants are caught on the wrong side of the ethics with corruption. And I thought that was very necessary. That was, from a content point of view, quite more responsive. It was quite responsive in terms of the challenges. And then the discrimination, we know how the poor seem to be when it comes to service delivery. If you profile the various service delivery protests, you'll find that it's citizens that are more on the on the poorer side that tends to protest. So if this type of training then can start at knowledge level, but also trickle down to the actual practices in terms of how we relate and how we eventually render service delivery, and that would be great. And so I thought of that, and I thought it's a good connection to make between this. And if one reflect to the 12th PSTF session where the DG reflected on the connection between training and development, service delivery improvement, as well as poverty alleviation, one would fully agree that it is an important element to quicken, to find innovative ways of deepening the development and training so that there is improvement in service delivery, so that one is responsive to the poverty-stricken communities. And then just, lastly, a very nice observation for me was just how quick the facilitators could get back with their feedback to us as learners. And so it was demonstrated that ICT application can really be efficient and also effective in the sense that you can go on with other elements of your work and not to waste so much time. So that both the elements of efficiency and the elements of being effective in and doing your work and achieving the objectives was also quite nicely demonstrated by the quick learner feedback that was provided by the facilitator, demonstrated almost live and as one goes on. So I thought that was easy to take and apply. So even in my current work of working with on human rights and frontline monitoring, that interaction with the frontline workers, with the clients, one would apply this, especially where one is facilitating service delivery improvement approaches to the results that one finds from the monitoring that we getting. So it's a journey, but I think that this was a nice impetus, nice injection into the muscles to sort of propel one further into this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stofile. We are now moving to the third question, which is the last question. The question is, do you have any other significant observation that you would like to share? So in this case, I'm going to request that mainly two people respond to this question, Mr. Ibrahim Ismail Gord and Mr. Stofile.
Thank you very much, Ms. Matibola. Yeah, so the other observations, I think, is perhaps from my side, if I could just cover the bit on IT just a little bit. I'd flip my understanding of that particular question and try to look at what organizations can do, particularly government departments, in terms of ensuring that their employees are ready to receive online ETD in the field of ICT. And my impressions in this regard is that we should try to make use of what is already there. There's huge amounts of ICT infrastructure within the public service and government departments. And we are making use of a very small part of that infrastructure that we have, particularly in the side of productivity applications. I think most government departments, and I speak for Limpopo here in particular, have a contract with Microsoft, for instance. We have an enterprise agreement. But we're only using a fraction of what is available within those technologies. And I think we need to start leveraging those. And the way to do that is to perhaps give executive management more insight into ideas such as future-proofing your organization. What exactly does it mean? We need to get the policies aligned so that we can begin to implement things like upskilling, multi-skilling, cross-skilling. And these have to be somehow driven through policy initiatives. The other thing is for organizations to begin to develop innovation models and adopt innovation models, to look at some quick wins based on what is already available to us in terms of technology, because typically speaking, in government departments, we tend to go for the large investment projects. And these are usually run by outside organizations through service providers and consultants and so on. But we have enough technology on the desktop to be able to roll out some quick win applications. And so one of the things that the NASG should be looking at also is to kind of expand the course portfolio to include specific training on micro applications that government departments already have purchased that they have licensing for. So, for example, the use of artificial intelligence, chatbots, things like forms and templates, to conduct workflow and process improvements. So the tools to conduct these activities are already owned by government. We already have them. But I think there needs to be a skilling up of employees in departments so that they can start using those tools and not necessarily have to rely on these large-scale, costly projects. So that is my general observation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Stofile.
Good day. I'm just trying to activate the video. Facilitator, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'm just having problems to activate the video. I don't know if you can do it on your side, but I can speak so long if that's okay with you.
All right. Do you have Jonathan Swelly's email address?
Yes, I do.
Or you can throw it on the chat box.
My email address.
Okay, you can send it to Jonathan by email address.
Okay, but can I speak to my response? Can I
yes,
can I respond verbally? All right.
Yes.
So for yeah, thank you,
ma'am. You can just
ma'am.
open your camera in the meantime.
Okay. You can. It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. The host has stopped.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can you assist from your side? And
Mr. Stofile?
Yes, sir.
Can you please proceed without a video, please?
Okay, right. Okay, sure. All right. So what was significant for me, in addition to what I've mentioned, was the fact that, although one is empowered with the technology, it's important from a facilitator point of view, and to be aware of the environment. And I think Someone said that when you have a hammer in hand, it's easy to start seeing everything as a nail. So ICT is a useful tool that one can use to enable training and development as well as service delivery improvement. But it's important to take into account your environment. And I think that part of the content that was provided to us was the needs assessment, especially the training needs assessment in this case. But I think environmentally, it's also important to then see that this ICT tool that I have in my toolbox, where and how can I use it? And I think that that was useful for me to have the profile, to have the skill set and competencies of a facilitator nicely highlighted, so that you have a facilitator that is sensible enough to use what is needed rather than what they can show off with, what they can think they want to try in terms of these tools that one have. And I agree fully with Mr. Koert that there's a lot of tools already, so it needn't be an expensive affair to start landing all of this enablement and this learning. But it's a matter of re-looking, looking at the mindset and re-looking the environment and how we currently do things. But also to cement some of these learnings through other instruments, such as your human resources tools, your performance management tools, I know, your monitoring and evaluation tools. The colleague from Limpopo was telling us, showing us about a number of questions that need to be asked in order to ingrain the whole professionalization. So I think that ICT, I think that the digital art of facilitation is a great addition, it's a great enablement for professionalization of the public sector going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we have come to the end of our session with the panelists. All I'm going to do now is to take questions, but mainly I realize we have only one question, which was actually addressed during Dr. Friend's presentation. The question reads as follows. The digital divide is a reality, especially in the Eastern Cape, which is predominantly rural. Minimal or no access to internet and digital devices, as well as lack of digital skills. Are there mitigation measures offered by the DAOF to close this gap? Those who benefit from these programs are mostly in urban areas, and that defeats the objectives of diversity and inclusion. I think Dr. Friend's presentation responded to that, but what I can add to you or just remind you is that despite the fact that we are not ready as a country, we are aware that we are not ready, but we cannot stop to remind you of the effects of COVID-19. And we also have to face the reality that while other people are on 4th and 5th industrial revolutions, where is South Africa? We know at the moment, this is still only accessible to people in urban areas, but the government is aware that there is a lot that has to be done to ensure that everybody is accommodated in terms of the digital and e-learning kind of teaching and learning. I see the second question. Or how do we get issued with the certificate of training? For those of you who are attending or will be registering for the program, you get your certificates as you continue. You get a certificate of completion for each and every module, but now at the end, you need to get a certificate for the whole program. Remember, the whole program consists of 7 modules. So for each module you complete, it will allow you to print a certificate of completion. But you will only get a certificate of competent once you have completed all the 7 modules. You've also submitted your summative assessment, and you've also presented to a group of learners. So we are going to assess you and say you are ready to go, or you still need to improve 1, 2, 3. Colleagues, I think I'm going to hand over the session back to the actual program director, but I want to thank you all for
Thank you very much, Doreen. Am I audible, colleagues?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Stop sharing your screen. I want to thank each and everyone who participated this morning, and also starting from yesterday. Just a correction there, Doreen, it was COVID-19. It was 19, not 18. I hope we understood that one. We just want to thank each and everyone, starting from the presenters from yesterday up to today, because really on this webinar, it was a really eye-opener to many of us in the new norm. The organizers of the webinar, the NSG, thank you very much for this good program that you guys have run for us for the 2 days. Also inviting the speakers on the day, behind the scenes operations that you guys have done from your side, and each and every participant to post on the question and answer box. Thank you very much for that. You've also triggered some responses from the side of the panelists and also from the host. But we hope to have more constructive sessions such as this one. The panelists for today on the digital art of facilitation, guys, you were on board, because now you have actually instilled in all of us that desire to be part of this process in future. But it is last but not least, you colleagues collectively participated in this PSTF webinar. We say thank you to you also, and hope that each and every one we have learned from this process. There was a question posed, and this is to the host, for us to get this recording, maybe for downloading of the presentations and also the recording as a whole. But thank you very much. I want to give over to Dr. Denise Miller now to actually thank each and every one of you with a closing note. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sampson, for chairing the session today. We sincerely appreciate it. I think, colleagues, essentially, we wanted to demonstrate in the PSTF for this year to say that, you know, we have a very important role towards or to contribute to the professionalization of the public sector. And one of our starting points, as we've indicated now with our panel discussion as well, is to start with us as the providers of ETD interventions in the public sector. We also wanted to demonstrate with this PSTF and the way that we have compiled the program that yes, we can deliver ETD interventions, we can run courses, we can run programs or workshops or seminars, but it is also important for us, and it is our responsibility to also take time out and measure our work and to begin to question for ourselves and reflect whether our work is contributing to professionalization in the public sector, whether our work is contributing towards addressing those questions and issues as raised by yourselves yesterday around discrimination in the system, about corruption in the system, and how our interventions help to address these and counter these kinds of practices in the public sector. And therefore it was, we have found it important then to begin to start our conversation, not only with what we deliver, but also how we measure it with Dr. Joss's presentation, as well as the presentation from the DPME. The chairperson already did my bit, I think, and I don't want to repeat it, but I want to thank the chairpersons for the manner in which they conducted the sessions. I particularly want to thank the reference team, which we have consulted with in the planning of this, as well as the planning of the program. And if some of the reference team members are still here, maybe you can switch on your cameras. I particularly want to thank the planning team. It was Doreen, if you can switch on Jonathan, Marty, and Surya. That was the team that put the session together. And without your support, we would not have been able to run the session. But as Anthony already said, more importantly, colleagues, we would like to thank your participation in the session. Without your participation, we would not have been able to have the successful PSTF. This PSTF again speaks to the change in the nature in which we are doing the work. We are no longer necessarily dependent on bringing people on board, in one physical venue, but it did not prevent us from engaging in conversation. I also would like to, in closing, pick up on Nosisa's question where she indicated around the limitation of access to devices. Nosisa, we are aware of this, and part of our work in the school is to ensure that our work is inclusive. So if you would like to engage with us around how to enable the Eastern Cape ETD practitioners in their professionalization journey, we are open for that. But once again, thank you very much, colleagues. We sincerely appreciate your attendance. And as we have posted in the chat, the recordings will be available by Monday, as well as the presentations. And Marty, our technical support, and thank you very much for that, Marty, once again, she will make sure that she sends out a link with the presentations as well as the recordings. In the meantime, you can also watch or re-watch this on the YouTube channel, and we will really appreciate it if you could also distribute it as far and wide so that we can continue this conversation on reflecting and interrogating our practices. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your attendance.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye, Dr. Frank.